Good evening, Danvers. This is Mark Zubrick with the topics of the town news, March 18th, 2021. Today, we have special co-hosts that I have invited, Michael Hagan and Keith Lucy. John Toomey, as he's been a long-term co-host with me, is currently unavailable due to being cautious about the situation that we're all enduring. First things first, what I like to do is identify myself as declare myself as a candidate for the school committee in the town of Danvers. The school committee has been very active in the recent weeks because we have been transforming our education process from in-class learning to remote learning, and now we're going back into in-class learning. And I think our education deserves a lot of transparency of what's going on within the school system. And we need somebody into that school committee organization that has independence, doesn't have control over by anyone inside the school department, and also someone that has a lot of experience. And as you may know, I have experience going back into 1991 or 1992 on the finance committee. I was, recruited for the finance committee back in 1991 by Frank Mills, who has been very instrumental in leading this town. Also, back in 1995, I was elected to the Board of Selectmen and functioned for 6 years as a watchdog and a individual that was interested in the entire town and how the town operates. Currently, I'm a town meeting member and an individual that has deep interest in the education process of how our future generations are being educated and led into the future with good education background. I will have more on this subject as we move along, but I just wanted to clear the tables here and say that I am a candidate for the school committee, and I would love to have your vote, and we'll speak about this later. The other item that I wanted to do is now we will get into our show, the presentation for the news stories. Our format has changed slightly, and I will identify 5 topics that I would like to talk about. But in the meantime, this being March 18th today, but yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, I have a brief little note that I received today. Happy St. Patrick's Day. But there's a Irish blessing on top of the card. May soft be the grass you walk on. May fair be the skies above you. May true be the joys that surround you. May dear be the hearts that love you. I thought this was very appropriate to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and I want to thank you for listening to that little poem. So, next items that we have is our production today will consist of 5 segments. One is very short, Selectmen meeting results and update, no mention of open meeting law violation, letter by the Mass Attorney General. Danvers school system investigation and the lack of reports. The third one is Beverly Airport meetings and master plan. Number 4 is national and local coronavirus status, Danvers state and national issues. Number 5 is very important to us right now is town election. So if we can move on, I listened to some of the selectmen's meeting, but there was very little that was of substance. The only thing is they had a liquor license transfer, and they denied the transfer for the Polish club. So what we have to do is revisit that issue. The other issue is there was really no discussion and no exploration of the transparency of what's going on in our government about the open meeting law violation. And this has been an issue for 6, 8 months now. And there's been no response from the Board of Selectmen. Keith, you have anything on that?
It goes back to what you actually, it's funny how you just mentioned that it's the same as the topic you're running the school committee to embrace is openness and transparency in all flavors of government. I mean, we were sort of kneecapped right off the start with this incident we had last summer, Mark, right? With basically open meeting violations were going on. Now, you can't go back and fix it. Some of the damage that's done is damage that's done permanently. There's no recourse. The Attorney General can slap them on the wrist, and you'd expect the Board of Selectmen to at least acknowledge, say, okay, sorry about that. We learned our lesson. We promise not to do it again. No one on that Board of Selectmen has acknowledged that there was a violation and that they were found guilty of a violation, not just accused, found guilty. So it's troubling. Luckily, we have a selectmen's race every year, and this year no different. 2 seats available, 3 very qualified candidates. Rick Betancourt, Tim Donahue, and Matt Duggan are all new candidates looking to fill one of those seats, and hopefully 2. And so maybe there'll be new blood. I mean, we of course know all 3 of them to be reasonable people. We don't always agree. I've disagreed with all 3 candidates over the years on different things, and I've agreed on other things.
Right.
And knowing them as well as I know them, I know that they will do their best, and they'll be open and transparent as much as possible. And that's really the key at every layer of government. And that's what's sorely missing, even on the Board of Selectmen, which is should be the easiest one to be transparent on.
Absolutely. And the thing that sort of impressed me with the people that have signed up to get elected, like the 3 individuals you mentioned, they are younger. They are not in their 70s like most of us.
Right.
And the problem is that we need new blood, and that's what should be presented. And the thing is that I report on this selectmen's item on topic number 1, and there's really nothing going on, and they're ignoring all of the issues that are presented before them. And the thing is that there's no reaction or action for the residents. So that's my Michael. You got anything on that?
When the ruling came out, Keith and Mark, wasn't there something about where they agreed to do training?
Every violation that's issued by the Attorney General's office is that they have to go through a session of training sessions to educate themselves on how to conduct an open meeting.
Well, if they, again, getting back to transparency in the violation, is there any public record of any training they've attended? Recently, the library board has to do the conflict of interest training, and you take the test, you get a certificate, and you're required to notify the town hall. But I would think that would be open. I mean, wouldn't that be public record if they've attended any training, or the extent of it, or?
Well, I will look into that. I have no problem looking into that. The thing is that we need to get some freedom of information request, and I'll put that in. But following on, we have a similar situation, which is happening with the FOIA requests that have been submitted in regards to the school and school issues that have been happening since August of last year. There were 2 or 3 investigations that have happened. I have reported on the FOIA request that I received. Well, it was blacked out so much that I could only gather out of the police captain's report that the only thing that happened was there was some, boys really having a great time on the bus during the high school graduation. And everything that has been reported on that focuses on the sports program. However, with the information that has been released through Facebook, there are more serious issues. And this is where the other half of the FOIA request has basically ignored my request totally because they legalized everything and privacy issues and everything else. But the thing is that the Danvers residents, the taxpayers in this town, really do not know what's been going on and how it's being resolved. Michael?
And like we've said before, in any investigation, one such as sensitive as this one is, involving alleged incidents, students, faculty, after graduation, I'm sure that the investigating agency, along with the town, is being very careful. I'm sure they're going to delay it as long as they can. What if they're, I've been doing a little homework on my own outside of this. There may be some of those incidents that weren't even true that were printed anyway.
Right.
And that became an issue. There's some of those incidents that I've been told from people outside that some of those things didn't happen, and the media, whoever it was on Facebook, and then it got sent forward, never to be returned.
That's right. No, that has happened, and I have. There's been reported that a lot of these interviews that they were conducting, the kids didn't know anything about it. But the thing is, why isn't this at least the issues? Maybe this is the transparency that I was talking about earlier. There is no transparency. Everything, and as you noted in one of the articles that Salem News printed, Mr. Thompson said that he's not sweeping anything under the rug. And we used that term last show.
Right.
I think that, like I say, they got to be very careful with this because, people that may have been affected may have private counsel.
Right.
Some of the people that were wrongly accused may have private counsel. And I'm sure that's a concern. Once somebody has private counsel and you and I are looking for the answers, that might be another delay because they've attained their own private counsel.
Well, that's absolutely true. And that's the protection of the individuals. And I agree with that. However, what I would suggest is that we may explore the incidents that have happened in summary level. So the residents and the school committee and the school administration can do something about it.
I think it's going to be a while. I think it's going to be a long while. I think it's going to be quite a while.
Well, that's all right. Keith?
Well, as you know, that's what we talked about last show was, the school committee should have been discussing this in terms of what happened that was inappropriate and what didn't happen that was claimed to be inappropriate, without discussing names or individuals at all. You know, a group of students, right? Uh, were accused of X, and that was shown to be true. Another group of students was accused of Y, and that was shown to be not true.
Right.
And you know, a faculty member was accused of this, and a faculty member, whatever the accusations were, should be publicly disclosed and not. I mean, when Mr. Thompson says he's not sweeping anything under the rug, no, he's putting it in the back of a file cabinet. You better file a FOIA request, and they're going to get out their magic marker and make it unreadable. It's unfortunate that we just choose to ignore, you know, so many things that happened. And if the school committee has to take action against the students or the faculty members, right, then likewise there should be some repercussion to those that, you know, falsely accused. I mean, it sounds like Danvers, right? We all know the history of the Salem witch trials, and it's unfortunate that it continues to this very day, that people can just point the finger, and then sometimes run away. You know, I know that from personal experience. Someone can point a finger at you, turn it over to the courts or to the administration, and never be heard from again. And it's up to you to not just disprove your guilt, but actually prove your innocence. And some of that, you know, from what I've heard from people went on this time, that they were assumed guilty of these things, and there should be repercussions. If there's going to be repercussions against the students and faculty that actually did something wrong, then there should be repercussions against the accusers of those who did nothing wrong. Right? And that's just it's a very dangerous place to be when we can just point a finger and run.
Well, I have gathered an awful lot of information in regard to what has been transpiring there. But the thing is, what my FOIA request was for an explanation of what actually happened, how are we going to address it, and how are we going to resolve it? Because the entire town is involved in this situation, but the school department and the school committee does not want to divulge any information. And I totally agree with Mike. Mike, privacy issue is something that has to be protected, and that has been throughout all government. But when there's an issue, we need to address it head on and find a way to resolve it, not by hiding things or having tutorial sessions for the sports teams, because that's one of the items that I found is that the education of the re-education of the sports teams is taking place in special sessions that they have to attend. But the thing is, I don't know, I'm just concerned that there is no visibility or transparency of what is going on in the school system.
The other thing they don't take into consideration, Mark, and anybody that's been under any investigation, and I must say, I've had a few in my time, in my long career that I loved in the Danvers Police Department, but this goes much beyond just the individual, he or she in the police, the teacher, whoever is being looked at and in under the magnifying glass. This reaches much beyond them. It goes to their families. Their families suffer, and then how do they run around and try to explain to their neighbors? You know, I mean, you can't. What can you say? And that's a problem. That this has affected families, children involved in you know, all kinds of extra activities. I mean, this is really put a black mark or a bad mark on some of the individuals involved, and they can't dig themselves out of it because first of all they can't say anything, and second of all they're already labeled. You know.
Yeah, but let me just give you an example of what happened to me last night. I was out in my neighborhood taking my papers and having signatures. I went in 2 hours. I was able to get to 3 families, 3 homes. Every home wanted to sit down and talk about what the heck is going on. And one of the families has grammar school, middle school, and high school students, sports programs, and they do not understand what has happened and how it can be resolved. They really don't. And so I sat there for half an hour at a time listening because it is important for us to understand what the situation is and how are we going to address it because the situation is affecting every single family in this town.
When they label something like in the school a toxic culture or and they give all these examples or alleged examples about look what they were doing and nothing happened to them, but I got spoken to and things
Right.
like that. That nothing's changed in that education system since I was spending my time on the in the detention office after school with a couple friends of mine. But nothing's changed. It a lot of it depends on. Hey, listen, he's got to play football tomorrow night. We need him. You know what I mean? And nothing's changed. And the finger gets pointed, but that's the way it's been. It's not right. It's not right, but everything, it's still the same,
Well, see, the issues get to be more sensitive in the climate that we're all living in right now. And in the past 20 years, it's been going, to a level where everybody has an opinion, but they're afraid to say anything. So, David, if you can throw out my little cartoon, and what it says in here is, I miss the good old days. Remember when you could actually have an opinion without offending someone. So the issues are, yes, they are very sensitive. However, they need to be addressed, but it's a cultural thing. It's not some individuals in the school system. It's got to be the entire school system. Keith?
But
Well, that's a great point, Mark, and that's why when we look at how the school committee sort of operates today, they operate as if they're working at the school. Their concerns are oftentimes extremely narrow focused, right? And I'll tell you right now, Mark, I've been reading up on the other 3 candidates for school committee, and they all seem very well intended. I'm sure you know probably more about them by now than I do. They all seem very well educated. They all seem very well intended. They all seem as though they could be a great asset to working at the school. But that doesn't always translate into the ability to lead a school, which you need a layer of independence that allows you to not treat Dr. Dana as your friend or one of the high school principals as your friend first, but treat them as the employee, right, and direct them, right, and that's what I find lacking in so many situations in that school, is that the current members of the board either come in and rapidly just become cheerleaders for the school. So there's a lack of independence in a lot of those seats, which is why I said before, it's the selectman's office is easy. I mean, it's like, compared to the school, and I understand the school would be difficult if you had kids in the school. So when you don't have kids in the school, you have the ability to be honest. No one dislikes education. No one says shut the place down. But it's about that high level vision, Mark, that comes from years of service. And it's going to be interesting to see what direction the town chooses to take after, and really the school parents themselves choose to take after what, the feedback I've heard is the same as you, what has been going on at that school between the remote learning, the in-person learning, and then the investigations that have now, it'll almost be a year.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate that there's no clear explanation of this is what happened, this is what we did to X, this is what we did to Y, and now we're moving on. Well, it goes back to the transparency for the Board of Selectmen. Yep, we were accused of an open meeting violation. The Attorney General said we were guilty of it. He told us we needed to do some training. That training was scheduled, that training was held, and that training was delivered, and now this is over.
Right.
There's
Well,
no closure.
right. And with the school committee or the school department, it's even more important because at the selectmen's seat, you can reverse your decisions and change your mind and all that. On the school committee, you've got a long-term influence on how the children of our town are being educated and how well they will succeed in the future. And what we need to make sure is that the education is so well-rounded that they can survive in any environment. So,
Mark, I wonder, make another point, exactly, with you, being a good, watchdog candidate. You've done your homework, you have the experience. When you ask a question, especially at these meetings, you already know the answer, and you're waiting for them and they're fumbling. A lot of them are fumbling, knowing that you know the answer. If you are fortunate enough to prevail, and one way I would think that you could eliminate the whole mystery after the investigation is completed and there's nothing more it's over. Why don't they just call a press conference together and say, this has been a big concern for the people of the community, the children out of schools, residents. This is what we did. This is what happened. This is what we did. I don't think you ever see it happen, but that would eliminate all suspicion.
well, what do you need is a strong school committee membership that will ask for that or even volunteer for that, because the school administration does not want to do that because that exposes them to different influences. So I don't know if we saw the cartoon, but David, do you still have it or not?
Yeah, it was up.
It was up? Okay, I missed it. But that's my favorite one because it's a good one where, I miss the good old days. Remember when you could actually have an opinion without offending somebody. And right now, everything has to be politically correct. So, in moving on, I have identified a couple of articles that have come through, and Superintendent Dana said Danvers has taken multiple steps towards being an equity-seeking district and improving the social climate. She and other school officials would only offer limited details from the investigation. The district so far has not responded to public records requests from the Salem News and from me, for a copy of the report. So, like you said, Keith, they're going to block this thing until somebody really demands on finding out what the heck is going on. And according to the police report, which was heavily redacted, which I got, police reviewed the school report and determined the students' behavior did not warrant criminal charges. So it is basically the police threw it back into the school administration hands because they are in charge of discipline in the school. So that's part of it. According to Mr. Thompson, Kirker, who was doing the investigation, and that was all legal beagle stuff, found no evidence that the coaches were aware of the activities taking place in the locker room, and that was spread through social media over the summer. So here we go back to the accusations on Facebook and we're reading into what the heck is really going on. This needs to be totally explained. Thompson did not elaborate on the accusations, but said the locker room behavior led to the creation of equity and inclusion workshops that more than 150 student athletes have already participated in. He said the district hopes to have all students take part in these workshops and other training programs. Are we educating our children, or we're indoctrinating them into something other than education? So that's part of it. The last item that I have on this is we need to develop safe, supportive, culturally sustaining, and equitable learning environments. Boy, it's a teacher talking, I'll tell you that. Dana said, adding that the administration is committed to concept of courageous caring. Mainly, that means really looking at regularly and reflecting on our own biases, attitudes, and assumptions, challenging our belief systems through difficult conversations, and being neutral or responsible and accountable in interrupting moments of bias or racism and using these moments to model how to understand the address them going forward to disrupt patterns of inequality and inequities. So I believe this is the last step that they're going to be taking, but I think the public needs to know why and how these steps are going to be taken and how their children are going to be affected. So I think that's the end of the line on the FOIA request. I'm going to appeal it, but I think, Keith, you're absolutely right. They're block it all the way to the end. So, any comments from Mike?
Like I say, I would hope that, I'm not sure it's ever going to happen, that to come forward with such a large issue involving children, families, the communities, people's reputations, clear the air and come forward to the people and say, look, this is what happened. This is what we found, and then allow people to ask questions. Then again, I don't think it's going to happen. It should happen, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I think you were absolutely correct about this news briefing or an explanation in a summary format. No names required, but the thing is, we need to understand what is actually happening in there and how we can prevent those things from happening.
And that's, I guess, when you have, children that are going to be entering high school next year.
Right.
You have an 8th grader right now, and then you may have some concerns about your daughter or your son going to DMSI. I mean, my kids went to DMSI. My brothers and sisters and I, we all went to DMSI. But there may be some question in people's mind. They may choose an alternative, private school.
Keith, anything to add?
Oh, I just am going to just loudly agree with both of you guys. It's you just need someone on that board that's willing. When Mr. Thompson doesn't do what we just discussed, when he doesn't have a hearing, doesn't have a public meeting, then that is the equivalent of sweeping it under the rug, putting it in the back of the file cabinet, closing it, and moving on. It's much easier to just let people know this is, a bunch of students did this, and this is what we did. A bunch of faculty did this, and this is what we did. A bunch of students were accused of this, and it didn't happen. Or, we didn't think it was major, and we moved on. An explanation like that, not just this. We've re-educated a bunch of students, right? It probably goes beyond just athletes. It's probably, a systemic problem in the school. And so I would just like to see more transparency, more openness with the school committee. It's just a trouble I have with them that, they're oftentimes, we hear it all the time. You know, they think that the role is school first, town second, and the actual reason for the role of a school committee is town first, school second,
Right.
right? And let the school superintendent defend what she wants to do as the right thing, and work with her faculty and everyone else. And a lot of times the school committee members get kind of backward. It's the town's control over the school, not they're not just cheerleaders for whatever the school wants to do to the town.
Well,
So-
great. Thank you, Heath. I have the next item that we have, and we're running a little short, but I'll make this very quick and clean. As you know, the master plan for the Beverly Airport has been discussed over the last, I don't know, 3 meetings with the Beverly Airport Commission. And it has also been discussed at a community meeting for Danvers, and then another one for the Danvers Board of Selectmen. Now, I have been notified that the Board of Selectmen basically are, they can't do anything. The thing is, the residents have come out at the Board of Selectmen's meeting asking for help to curtail and reduce the noise levels and the size of the airport, because the master plan has one objective, is to increase the length of the main runway by 300 feet into Danvers and 300 feet into Beverly. Now, they cannot go any further into Beverly because they have wetlands and buildings in the way, but they are reaching into the backyards of our neighbors and our residents that live along Old Burley Street. That has been noted and submitted as comments to the FAA and to the Mass Aeronautics Commission, which also is included in this master plan. Now, the master plan, the biggest issue that I see, and I will just raise it, is the Beverly Municipal Airport has a noise abatement program, which was issued back in 2006 by Robert Mazzetti, airport manager. And just one couple of sentences here. The Beverly Airport Commission has produced this booklet in a continuing effort to refine the noise abatement program here at Beverly Municipal Airport, with the aim of reducing the impact of aircraft noise in our neighborhood. It has been effective due to the voluntary cooperation by the aviation community. However, noise abatement remains the responsibility of each aircraft pilot, which is totally true, and that's why everything is being pushed off to the FAA or the Mass Aeronautics Commission. The neighbors came out in force at the Selectmen's meeting, and there were people on the Airport Commission meeting for the community of Danvers, and they expressed the same views that this thing is showing. What I have been told is that this noise abatement program has been put into the trash can because nobody's using it.
Okay, so Mark, a couple of things there, right? I can have a policy that says I'm only going to eat bacon once a month. Doesn't mean I'm only going to eat bacon once a month. It's just like I'm going to eat it when I eat it, right? And so same with this noise abatement program. You can have a policy that says a lot of things, but until you follow the policy, you really don't have a policy. But I wanted to correct you on one thing that you just said. You said the neighbors came out, and oftentimes people get accused in this town of, oh, you moved into next to an airport. What did you expect? That room, and I saw letters to the editor, and I've seen letters to the FAA since then. These are not people that are abutters of the neighbor of the airport. These are people that live all over town and feel the impact of that airport. You had forwarded in a letter today, the guy's 5 miles away from the airport, and he feels the impact of that airport. I feel the impact of the airport, and I'm halfway across town from the airport. We would be down at ball fields, and you'd feel the impact of the airport. You'd know they were doing touch and goes in a way too tight of a loop. So this is not a neighborhood issue. This is not, it's not an abutter of the airport issue. It's a town issue. And once again, you know, in an issue like this, you don't reach out to the school committee, you don't reach out to the library trustees, you reach out to the Board of Selectmen. And they are woefully lacking. They are, you said there's nothing they can really do. Well, there is something they can do, right? They can meet with these folks and say, hey, look, we represent 28,000 people that feel as though we're being impacted negatively by this airport. And again, you know, we hear the claims about the economic impact of the airport, which I still have a very hard time believing that's not, you know, you show me a report that you want to demonstrate a result, and I'll write a report that demonstrates that result. So it's a detriment to the town. It does not provide the economic impact to the town that people have claimed it does. It's a nuisance at this point. I mean, it's a relic of what a friend of mine calls the G.I. Joe generation, where we're not going to be driving around in cars in 50 years. We're going to be flying in planes, and it's going to be wonderful. It's a hobby, largely, and if it grows beyond a hobby, and we start getting Amazon delivery in there and FedEx delivery more than we do currently, it's a real problem. So people that live next to the airport didn't move in next to this airport; they moved into a much different airport. And people around town that are feeling the impact 4, 5, 6 miles away, don't tell me this is a butter issue. This is a town issue. And but once again, it's just a lack of representation for the average resident in this town.
And the Board of Selectmen doesn't seem to care enough to address the issue. What I have been, has been reported to me is that Aaron Henry, who is one of our airport commissioners, is going to write a letter with the comments that were obtained at the Selectmen's meeting on that day. But what I want to do is, there is a Beverly Airport Commission meeting on Monday, March 22nd at 6 p.m. There is a contact that you can tie in to the conference call, and you can hear what their discussion is. One of the new business items is Airport Master Plan Community Meeting. So I am just waiting to hear what kind of comments will they be concerned with. So just wanted to let the audience know that this meeting is taking place on March 22nd, Monday at 6 p.m. And we need everybody to get out there. The other thing is that this issue has been bouncing around for years. This is nothing new. I mean, when you were on the board, Keith, when I was on the board, the same issues were happening. And the thing is that the master plan right now is geared towards expansion, lengthening the I call them driveways, it's runways, and encroaching into our neighbors' backyards.
Well, we have a current member of the Board of Selectmen that used to be an airport commissioner. And when he was an airport commissioner, he rightly said, I work for the benefit of the airport. Now, I disagree with that, but I thought he would be, again, the Danvers representative to represent the people of Danvers. But no, he claimed that he was always working for the airport first, and that was his goal. Okay, I can accept that. That same former airport commissioner is now a member of the Board of Selectmen. And yet he still acts as airport first and town of Danvers second. And that's got to change. There's no responsible person that a town person can approach and ask for results. You know, really, if you think about it, the three main branches of government, we beat the dead horse with the school committee, that there's really no way for the average citizen or parent of a student to address them without being shunned. And then the same with the general government and now Board of the only board that seems to work properly is the library trustees. I'm not sure who's running that show over there.
It has a
But-
great chairman, I'll tell you that.
Well,
But,
that's great, guys, but I just wanted to make sure that people realize that there is something going on in the background.
But Mark, one comment, if I may. When you said people came out in force, well, I understand COVID and restrictions, stuff like that. But when you minimize the amount of people in the room, that's one strategic move, easier to handle, less feeling of opposition. And then those people weren't heard. Those people were not heard. They sat there. I mean, some were talking about, they can't use their yards anymore and the value of their homes, and they could have coffee with the captain when he flies over, and all the same things, but they weren't being heard. Nobody was listening to them. Everybody was like next, who's next? And then
Right.
people, if they left there, thought they were being heard. I didn't hear a lot, unless I missed it, about the issue of safety, about the amount of, how many planes you need to crash before there's something, bad. There was something on Facebook the other day that I think in '76, a doctor and his wife, I think, he was in a hurry to get home, and it was icy, and he was, instead of waiting or whatever, he decided to take off, got up in the air, and then landed on Mass Ave. Crashed into Mass Ave.
That's the one that got killed, right?
And yeah, they burned to death. But John Tipley, who became a lieutenant, was the responding officer there, and he gave a lot of good information about the investigation and the following events. But those people weren't heard. The other day when we were at the Selectmen's budget hearing, you were heard because you know what? You had the facts, and they were trying to squirm and put you off, but you were heard. Those people weren't heard, Mark. And you know what? They've all gone away. Where are they gone? They're gone on. They're invited to a Zoom call. So what? They're going away. They got, okay, I said what I want to do, and then they slap them and send them home.
Well, that's a very interesting comment, because I sat in the library for the first session of the comments, because I allowed anybody that was involved in this to go into the first session, and they limited it to 25 people. Yes, they may have been 30 to 40 people that were present for that meeting. And you're absolutely right. The comments that are going to be sent in by the commissioners to the commissioners are really going to be irrelevant. But we'll continue pursuit of this, and we're going to get some transparency, and hopefully we can get to the FAA and get them to move on this. And yeah, I know what you're going to say. Good luck, right?
Well, no, Mark, if there's one person that's going to get a result, it's you. I mean, I always said you have 20 years of history. It is actually 30. So especially back to the beginning of the show when we were discussing your candidacy for the school committee, it's a wonderful thing to have younger people getting involved. It's another thing to have experience. And so on the school committee race, it looks like the town could possibly get the benefit of both.
Right.
Choose one of the other candidates based on their youth and their open-mindedness, right? Which is a wonderful thing. But also choose someone that's tenacious and won't give up and is not here to just usher through a few years until they're done with the school, but someone that's here for the long haul and has already demonstrated they're here for the long haul. I wish I know you'll get a result. You've gotten results out of the airport before. You've gotten thousands of results.
All right. Now let's move on to the next story. And this one, I'm going to keep it very short, but I would just like to read a brief statement, which I've been using for a long time. but this is in regard to COVID and the town of Danvers and the state of Massachusetts, and our whole environment has totally changed. Monumental changes do not always occur with fanfare and explosive action. Sometimes they take place gradually, a result of actions that initially appear relatively inconsequential but develop into extraordinary altercations in the very fabric of our society. Changes are currently occurring in our town, or they have already occurred, and it appears our residents have succumbed to the propaganda from the rulers. Now, that's my words. I know you guys are going to be, upset with that. But I believe that we are being intimidated as residents in this town because the town hall is closed, the electric company is closed, the water company is closed, all the offices in town are closed because it is related to COVID. Now, there is something going on with COVID, but do we need to shut down all our liberties? We can't even leave our home in many cases. That's what they want. My sentiment is that our leaders must stop the micromanagement and overreactive, ever changing control. We, the people, need to retain our inalienable, I have a problem with that, inalienable rights without infringement so we can continue to be an all inclusive town that we love and cherish. We must restore the respect for our taxpayers and all of our residents. So, in conclusion to this, I have a little cartoon, not a cartoon, but a documentary. David, if you can put down Mark Twain for us, this is very, very appropriate of what we're up to. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Mark Twain said that back in the 1800s. And the thing is that we have to get out of this mess that we're in, and we need to get leaders that can face the future without locking everybody up at home. David, next one I have, and this is an article that I found. Um, it's on the government has totally changed now how COVID-19 has changed the role of government forever. And this really, I will share that with you if you want it. But there's one lesson Americans should learn from this pandemic. It's that government action has failed to combat this complex crisis. If anything, it's making it worse. It's clear that the COVID-19 established a new normal where big government reigns and individual liberty is crushed. Instead of acquiescing to the far left, conservatives must introduce a bold vision of our own, which ensures that the government stays out of our pocketbooks, out of our schools, out of our businesses, and places of worship. This has been going on for over a year, and we're still continue imposing these kinds of restrictions on our people. We have responsibility of our own. Who's taking that responsibility? So that's my statement about COVID. And don't jump around. Keith, you're jumping around.
No, I was just trying to move something. No, I wanted to follow up real quick, Mark. If this government overreach or government intrusion continues, it would only be able to continue on evidence that they handled it well. If the changes they made resulted in, I mean, like the business I work in, like we're all working remotely, and it actually, in some cases, worked much better. I don't think that can be said about how our federal government, our state government, or our local government handled this crisis, right? So they really have no standing to say we want to keep these practices in place because they worked so well during the pandemic.
That's right.
There's really nothing they did well. I mean, I think we talked about it last time. CVS had just announced that they were going to start administering shots to school teachers, and they started doing it the next day. Where the state, just, in 2 weeks, we're going to allow them to sign up, right? That's an example of the private sector just getting things done instantly, and the public sector just tripping over themselves. And that's, part of my problem with this whole rollout has been the pharma companies have done a great job keeping up with demand, but the demand is not truly the demand of the people. It's the demand of the local governments or state governments that are woefully lacking. So no one gets to really pat themselves on the back on job well done here. It's
Right.
The pharmaceutical companies are barely keeping up with a woefully lacking rollout plan by these states that can't figure out whose arm to put the needle into.
That's right.
So it's just
Michael, you have anything?
I can only say, as far as regarding the town, that as chairman of the board of the library trustees there, people are offered a lot of services, even though they're not physically in the whole building browsing like people would like to be to enjoy the building. But if you go online or you call there, they offer a lot of the same services, only on a different fashion. And we're working hard at it. And COVID, I took the second shot, so.
Congratulations. I'm waiting until my
wasn't
doctor
forced into
decides.
it either.
All right.
I mean, Mike, not to stroke you too much, Mike, but the library is actually one of our best run group in town, and I wish the other departments in town will look to them and say, what are they doing right that we could mimic? And it's the library. You walk into the library and you do feel like it's customer first, right? So
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, we're moving on. We got 3 minutes left. And the last topic is basically the town elections and for the town meeting for selectmen. We have 2 seats that are coming up for election for the Board of Selectmen. And one of them has been vacated by Bill Clark. So that's an open seat. And the other one is Mr. Trask. But we have 3 candidates for that. We have Matthew Duggan, Rick Betancourt, and Tim Donahue, correct. So we have 3 good young candidates. And this is what I want to stress, is that we need new blood on that board. So there's your choice right there. School committee, we have 2 seats that are currently open. I don't know if the incumbents are going to take their papers out in the last minute or not, but we have Robin Doherty that's running for the school committee, Alice Campbell, and Joanna Hunter, and Mark Zubarek. So we have 4 candidates that are willing and interested in getting volunteering for these positions. They are very interesting positions because they're different than the Board of Selectmen. Town moderator is unopposed, and precinct town meeting members. There are a lot of vacancies on the town meeting membership. And what we need to do is we need to entice people to go and get elected, because that's an important position. However, it takes very little time. Our next show is going to be a selectmen's candidate presentation, which is going to be on April 1st, 2021. And the next broadcast of this program is going to be I had April 8th, but it's going to be scheduled for April 15th, tax day. So we'll